Good morning, everybody. Today's proceedings will be live streamed with the usual 15 minutes delay. Those with mobile telephones may use them to report what they hear in the hearing room, but only after 15 minutes have elapsed, since the event that they're reporting, they may not be used for recording or photography. Yes.
Good morning, sir. Can you hear me okay? Good morning, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Could you please hold the Bible up in your right hand and repeat after me? I swear by Almighty God.
I swear by Almighty God.
That the evidence I shall give.
That the evidence I shall give.
Shall be the truth.
Shall be the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Mr. Bart.
Thank you, sir. Could you tell us your full name, please?
David Christopher Veness.
And are the contents of your first witness statement for this inquiry, dated the 28th of May 2025, true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, they are.
Are the contents of your second witness statement for this inquiry, dated the 2nd of December 2025, true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
I understand, before we go any further, that you would like to make an apology.
Yes, if I may. Forgive me reading this. In my first statement, paragraph 8, I echo my apologies made on behalf of the Metropolitan Police Service to everyone who was deceived into relationships with SDS undercover officers. I also note and agree the comments of the current Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, in his opening statement, Tranche 2, Phase 1. Excuse me. In my statement, I expressed my apologies to those who were affected by these actions. There are specific extra issues which I would now add to this previous apology. The first is support the views expressed by Lord Condon last week. I particularly endorse that his expression of regret is all-encompassing and applies to everyone impacted by this harm. I also support the trenchant views of John Grieve, also of last week. Further, there are two important aspects which are more directly applicable to my specific role between 1994 and 2005 as Assistant Commissioner Specialist Operations. One of these is the significance of the regulation of the Investigatory Powers Act, RIPA. This was a very important development, balancing public security and human rights. RIPA was very significantly introduced the novel dimension of independent, high-level legal engagement. This was a transformative step which provided the opportunity to strengthen strategic oversight. I regret this was not pursued more vigorously by me. The second important aspect is the missed opportunity to extend the raft of provisions of safeguards applicable to evidential crime undercover deployments to SDS non-evidential activities. These are extensive and including welfare, training, and a wider supervisory regime. One key danger of SDS was its culture of exceptionalism and secrecy. Thus, there are two major opportunities: more rigorous implementation of RIPA and greater application of provisions which existed or were emerging for evidential UC operations. Together, these would have reduced the risk in the culture and practices of SDS. The combined and collective impact of these two opportunities would have produced major contextual possibilities. These included fundamental revision, perhaps cancellation of SDS activities. I very much regret that these opportunities were not taken at the time, and I wish to add these important extra dimensions to my previous apologies. Thank you very much.
So, David, I also understand that you wish to say something at the outset about the state of your memory.
Yes, this relates, and I feel guilty in mentioning, but it's had a significant subsequent impact. This relates to my role at the UN subsequent to serving AXO and the impact that has had on my recollection of events. Immediately following my departure from the Metropolitan Police in early 2005, I moved to New York to assume responsibility for the newly created United Nations Department of Safety and Security. I retired from the Metropolitan Police on a Friday and commenced my UN duties in New York the following Monday. The UN was a global department. The UNDSS was a global department with worldwide opportunities that was established and built up in dire crisis conditions. It was created following an Al-Qaeda attack on the UN headquarters in Iraq. My tenure in this role coincided with the war in Afghanistan and numerous other dire events across the world requiring my direct attention. As a result, my complete focus was on the creation and development of this new UN department. This was highly paced and highly pressurized work that necessitated extensive travel to dangerous conflict zones. This lasted for almost 5 years. It has regrettably caused a significant gap in my memory before those UN years. Thank you.
Another preliminary before we go any further, just for the transcript. I understand that you have a member of the Commissioner's legal team with you, Mr. Saber, and your wife, Lady Veness.
That is correct.
You tell us in your witness statement that between approximately 1980 and 1984, you were a commander in charge of public order.
That is right.
During that period, presumably the Brixton riots were the standout public disorder event.
Yes.
Can you help us with the legacy of those riots so far as race relations and public order were concerned within the MPS?
They raised the temperature and focus of both those dimensions, racism and public order.
Can you recall what were your other main concerns about public order during those years?
Public safety was the primary concern.
Was there any particular threat to public safety?
No, they were from a variety of sources.
It was an era of very large demonstrations organised by CND. Would it be fair to characterise those as large but cooperative with police?
Yes.
Can you recall receiving briefings from A8 about public order matters?
I think so, yes.
And were you aware that they had input from Special Branch Intelligence?
I assume so.
And were you aware at that stage that part of the Special Branch input into A8 documents came from SDS Intelligence?
Not that I'm aware.
I want to move now to Detective Sergeant Mike Chitty. So I'm moving forward to June 1994. I'm going to show you, go through a number of documents to help refresh your memory before most of my questions. Can we go first to 726956, please? To page 4, please. This is a document entitled Discussion Paper, SDS Targeting Strategy and Deployment in Relation to the Animal Liberation Front. This is part 1, the Chitty case. If we could go now to page 28. And I can tell you that Detective Sergeant Chitty served in the SDS in the 1980s. He infiltrated animal rights activists. He did engage in sexual activity with members of the public undercover. After his deployment, he returned to the activists he had socialized with during his deployment and resumed social activities, including a sexual relationship with them. This all came to light in 1994 and is the subject of this paper. If we can pick it up at paragraph 3.5 and running through to 3.8. I'll give you a moment to look at 3.5 to 3.8.
Yes, thank you.
This document is written by the then Detective Inspector within the SDS, D.I. Lambert, and you can see from those paragraphs that he is clearly recording Chitty's sexual activity undercover, both during and after his deployment. If we can go to page 30, please, in paragraph 3.12. That paragraph records, amongst other things, that Detective Inspector Lambert took possession of a love letter from the woman we are calling Lizzie to Blake. Blake is Chitty's cover name. So the account appears to be corroborated by a document. And if we go to page 39, please. And to the top of page 39, you'll see it's there recorded that there appears to be a possibility that he may still be mixing with those he met undercover and continuing a relationship in his cover name, Blake. Once you've digested that, I'll move to the next document.
Yes, thank you.
If we could have up 746137. I'm going to take you now, this is a minute sheet, and it's to tracking what happened to this report with the disclosures it contained. The first minute refers to the paper we've just been looking at, D.I. Lambert's discussion paper, and the DCI of the SDS at the time, Keith Edmondson, is promulgating it to the commanders of operations and P through Chief Superintendent CE. It goes up the chain of command, and if we could go to page 5, please, and minute 7. there's a debate about what to do with Chitty, and in particular whether or not he should be disciplined. The background is that he had been caught in a post-SDS role for financial irregularities. You will see here that the then DAC, John Howley, on the 18th of May 1994, is supporting advice, which is advice to discipline Chitty. Please inform me of any significant developments or hints of any. If we could, once you've digested that, I'll take you to another document.
Yes, thank you.
746094, please. Tab B88, sir. This is the next month, 20th of June 1994. It's from the DAC Security, Mr. Howley, to you. And at this stage, you've been in post a small number of months. And it's about DS Chitty Special Branch. I'll give you a moment to read that.
Thank you.
Now, if we go to page 2, give you a moment to read that, but I'm particularly interested in the last 2 paragraphs.
Okay.
You will have noted there that there's reference to an appointment for the DAC to speak to you and his suggestion that you might want to speak to the Commissioner about this. Also from this page, you can see that the DAC is essentially saying that there's nothing to be ashamed of in the SDS, and the average member of the public would expect there to be long-term, deep cover operations of the nature conducted by Chitty. Did you agree at the time that the SDS had nothing to be ashamed of and it was doing what the public might expect it to do?
In very general terms, yes.
If we could go now to 746093. This is 9 days later, on the 29th of June 1994. This is again a minute sheet, and you can see that it's got it's a minute on the first page, and in a moment we'll go to the next page, which has a draft briefing for the media. But can I at this stage ask you to look at DAC Howley's minute?
Okay, thank you.
You'll see from that it appears to confirm that you and DAC Howley had discussed DS Chitty's case. Can you help us with how fully DAC Howley briefed you about the Chitty case?
Well, I've no reason to question what is written down in the minutes, but I have no recollection of what you're showing me.
Can you recall whether you saw Detective Inspector Lambert's discussion paper?
No recollection at all.
Can you recall whether DAC Howley told you that Detective Sergeant Chitty had conducted sexual relationships in his undercover identity.
Absolutely no recollection.
But presumably that was an important part of the Chitty case, wasn't it?
I'm not sure what the detail of the case is.
But if an undercover police officer has been sleeping with an activist, that has been recorded in a discussion paper, would you have expected DAC Howley to tell you?
If he knew himself, I might have expected him to do so, yes.
And if he'd read the discussion paper, he would have known, wouldn't he?
Assuming he had.
Did he tell you that Detective Sergeant Chitty had returned to his cover identity and to his relationship with the woman we are calling Lizzie?
I mean, just to make the point, I have no recollection of being informed of inappropriate relationships between undercover officers and activists at any stage. And I certainly don't, I'm not assisted by this record of minute sheets.
Perhaps I can put it to you this way. Assuming DAC Howley had read the paper or otherwise knew, he should have told you, shouldn't he?
Yes, but he was a very senior and well-versed SP officer. I'm sure he would have acted properly had he known.
And we've seen the evidence of an ongoing risk that the relationship might have been continuing. Again, assuming he knew about it, he should have told you, shouldn't he?
Yes, but I would demur from the assumption that DAC Howley knew of this inappropriate relationship.
Is there any possibility that you were told but didn't remember because you did not think it very important?
No, I would have considered it important if I'd been told in terms at the time.
Is there any possibility that DAC Howley knew but decided you did not need to know?
I think there were a range of possibilities, but it would be conjecture at this remove.
From your knowledge of DAC Howley, how likely do you think it is that he knew and didn't tell you?
I wouldn't like to make any judgment at this remove.
Did you speak to the Commissioner about the Chitty case?
I've no recollection.
Just to be clear, at this time, in the summer of 1994, shortly after you had become AXO, would you have considered a UCO having sex with an activist undercover as being wrong?
Yes.
The minute refers to monitoring SDS activities and the potential for embarrassing disclosures. Are you able to help us with what was done to monitor the SDS for potentially embarrassing disclosures?
No, I'm not.
A theme of the Chitty case was whether it was the effects of living undercover, immersed in the activist world for so long, that had caused Chitty to behave the way that he did. Was this case an opportunity to improve the psychological support provided to undercover police officers?
With the benefit of hindsight, yes. But there is a more general point that long-term deployments in the unregulated way in which they occurred with the distant supervision was a danger we should have recognised at the time and thereafter.
Why is it only with hindsight? Surely at the time it would have been clear that there was an undercover officer who had gone seriously off-piste, and there might be a need to improve psychological support.
because I'm reading the details that were known at the time. I had no specific knowledge of the points you raise.
Can we take that down now and move on to a different topic? I'm moving now to the autumn of 1994. Could we have 527403, please? This is tab B101, sir. If we can have page 2. This is an SDS memorandum. I'll give you a moment to read the text on the page.
Yes, thank you.
And you'll see that it is relating the fact that the SDS had used deceased children's identities in the past, or elements of them, and that there was going to be a new system. And if we go to page 3, please. I'll let you read both the paragraphs of text.
Thank you.
The new system would avoid the need for the SDS undercover officers to use details of real people, and it was intended to get you to approve the new process.
Yes, I have no recollection about whether that proceeded.
We know that the SDS did change its practice at this juncture. Is it therefore likely that you did sign it off?
It's possible, but I have no recollection.
And would it follow that if you had been asked to sign it off as proposed, you would have been aware that the SDS had been using deceased children's identities but was changing course?
If that correspondence flowed, yes.
Can you recall anything about what prompted the SDS to change methods?
No.
Can you recall any concern about the fact the SDS had been using deceased children's identities?
To the best of my knowledge, this was many years after that I became aware of the use of these identities.
I'm specifically asking whether you can recall having any concerns in 1994. Can you recall whether you discussed this issue further up the chain of command? It appears that the change of system occurred smoothly, and it would therefore appear to follow that nobody had any concerns at this stage about the morality or the legality of having used deceased children's identities in the past. Is that fair?
Yes, my recollection or knowledge of this practice it is many years later.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I am.
Could we have 527328, please? Thank you. I'm moving now to some documents about a visit that was arranged for you to go to see the SDS on Thursday, the 15th of February, 1996. If we have page 9 up first, please.
I'm afraid I can't see that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, my first question is, can you recall whether or not this was your first visit? There's some suggestion in the papers that it wasn't. Can you actually recall going to see them before this date?
No.
If we have on page 3, please. Thank you. If we could expand that. Give you a moment to scan it, but it's a 6-paragraph down about the average length of operations that I'm going to be interested in.
Okay, thank you.
This is part of the briefing pack. It would appear at this stage it was communicated to you that the average length of operational duty for a field officer was 4 years. Can you help us with whether you knew that before February 1996?
I can't help you, I'm afraid.
Did you know that the SDS was involved in long-term undercover operations before this date?
I think I must have done.
When you go and visit the SDS in 1996, did you have any thoughts about the risks or the wisdom of such long-term intelligence gathering operations?
Not as much as I should have done, and clearly that is one of the issues that should have been addressed at a much earlier stage. I regret that I didn't.
Yeah, and there are a range of issues, aren't there? First of all, officer welfare.
Yes.
The dangers of not being able to corroborate the intelligence coming from the UCO.
Yes.
The risks arising from undercover officers having to appear in court or otherwise coming to the attention of the criminal justice system.
Yes, indeed.
Disclosure obligations in the event that there are prosecutions of activists.
Yes.
And the considerable scope for those so inclined for misconduct.
Yes. As I said in my apology, we needed to have an earlier regime which was using existing knowledge and procedures elsewhere applicable to these dangers that you just highlighted.
If on page 3, just go down to the last section, you'll see that section entitled Extreme Left-Wing Anarchist Anti-Fascists. There outlined are some of the targets for the SDS at the time. Did you already have an understanding of the sort of targets that the SDS was infiltrating from the annual reports at this stage?
I think that's correct.
If we go to page 6, this is a part of the briefing note dealing with individual SDS officers. If we could expand the top section on DC Mark Jenner, please. What did you know about the Hackney Community Defence Association at this time?
I can't recall I have any knowledge.
Can you recall what you knew about the Colin Roach Centre?
I think I would have known in general terms at the time, but I've no recollection today.
The second part of this gist reads, while maintaining an inside view of all public order events in the Hackney area, the officer has unique access to a range of anti-police campaigns in London. What did you make of knowing that an SDS UCO was reporting on anti-police campaigns in London?
I don't think it caused particular significance in my mind at the time.
Do you think it should have done?
With the benefit of hindsight, yes.
Why only with the benefit of hindsight?
Because we now know that there was inappropriate intrusion in groups of this nature, but that has occurred in many years later.
Can you recall how far you inquired of the officers when you visited the unit?
They were generalised visits, which the intention was to encourage and to thank them for the general manner of which they conducted themselves. It was not a probing assessment of individual details of an individual officer's activities.
Because on its face, without more, simply campaigning against the police is not a ground for deploying an undercover police officer, is it?
I think that's clear today. I don't think that I would make the judgment that I would be prompted by this brief reference many, many years ago.
Can we take this document down now? I want to draw your attention next to the document 746143, please. We're moving to January 1997, and this is Detective Superintendent Roger Pierce to you, drawing your attention to some SDS triumphs in the run-up to Christmas 1996. One involving ALF plans to poison some turkeys, and the other refers to a Reclaim the Streets plan to disrupt traffic on the M25 by stopping and placing banners on a tanker. Can you help us with why Mr. Pierce would have reported these triumphs to you?
No, they are, in his judgment, good works, and he is drawing that to my attention. I would have expected it to go through a longer chain of command.
How usual was it for units under your command to do this sort of thing?
In terms of disruption of the activist operations, very rare.
Yeah, I meant more in terms of how usual was it for units under your command to directly bring their triumphs to your attention?
I don't think they were regular.
What was the threshold for doing so?
I don't know that the main motivation would that be the person who prompted the report.
What these questions are driving at is how good was the SDS's internal PR effort?
I think with looking backwards, there was some endeavour in this direction.
Did you get the impression at the time that the SDS was seeking to impress you?
I think all the branches under my command would probably not be hesitating in bringing note to any regarded as good work.
And what did you do about that?
It was mainly for information.
Apart from praising work that deserved praise, did you develop any sort of cynicism or skepticism or critical need to be more critical in your evaluation of what you were being told?
Yes, with the benefit of looking backwards, I would have valued more criticism on my part.
Could we take that down now? Could we have 737231, please? This is tab B144, sir. Again, a minute from Mr. Pierce to you, this time through Commander Moss. I'll give you a moment to read the text. If we could have that expanded, please.
Thank you.
If we could go over the page to page 2. And this is your response, passing on your thanks for the SDS contribution to recent events. What had happened is that an officer who was a UCO in Reclaim the Streets had infiltrated the core organising group and was able to provide very detailed intelligence of RTS's plans for the demonstration that had taken place on the 12th of April 1997, and in particular a plan to occupy a semi-vacant building on Marsham Street, a Department of the Environment building. Can you recall anything about plans to police that event?
Nothing.
Can we take that down now, please? I want to move now to the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, please. Mr. Quick, Bob Quick, told the Stephen Lawrence review team on the 1st of November 2013 about a meeting in 1998, which he said was with the Commissioner, possibly the Deputy Commissioner, several Assistant Commissioners and DACs, all discussing the public inquiry. He says that the mood of that meeting was that the inquiry was deemed to be going very badly for the Met, although he does recall a comment to the effect of, "We are bomb-proof on racism." Can you recall any such meeting?
I regret that I'm not going to be helpful. I was not attached or dealing directly with the Macpherson or the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. I was not, I think, amongst the group of senior officers who were engaged. My focus was distinct and was mainly with terrorism.
Is it your evidence then that you were not at any of the meetings at which the Stephen Lawrence inquiry was raised?
We had regular meetings weekly with the Commissioner for the regular details of Metropolitan Police operations, so I imagine that it would have occurred at that stage, but not on the specific issue of having a meeting for addressing the Stephen Lawrence inquiry.
I think you, in your witness statement, make clear that the mood at the time was that the Stephen Lawrence inquiry was a very big and serious issue for the Metropolitan Police Service.
That is undoubtedly correct.
And presumably you were aware of that from your presence at the meetings that you've just described?
Absolutely.
And can you help us then with the general mood? At the start of the inquiry, was there a feeling that there might be a vulnerability so far as the quality of the investigation into Stephen's murder was concerned, but that on issues of racism and corruption, the picture might be better for the Met?
I'm not aware of that nuance.
What was your impression of the feeling within the Met as to where it stood on the three main issues: the quality of the investigation, racism, and corruption?
That there was a lack of confidence that the service had carried out its duties in the way that the public would have expected.
Does that encompass all three issues or just the first?
No, I think it's all across the board.
Can you recall whether or not there was a change in the mood? For example, would it be fair to describe the mood going down as the inquiry progressed?
I think there was a greater sense of pessimism, yes.
And was there a feeling that the inquiry was being conducted in a way that might be unfair to the Metropolitan Police Service and some of those witnesses who were appearing in front of it?
I don't think I was close enough to form a judgment.
Can I move now to a visit that you paid to the SDS in July 1998, for which we have a documentary record? Could we have 748092, please? Tab B166, sir. This is a briefing note for your visit that was due to take place on the 7th of July 1998. If we could have page 2 up, please. And if we, I'm interested, I'll give you a moment to familiarise yourself with the page, but it's paragraph 5 that I'm going to ask you about.
Yes, I understand.
The feature of paragraph 5 is that it's intelligence not on public order, but on criminal activities of individuals or groups in support of animal rights and other extremists. So criminal intelligence. Did you discuss that criminal intelligence function with members of the SDS?
I can't recall that I picked up the distinction that you just mentioned. I certainly would not have discussed details of operations or their infiltration with the officers. It was very much a generalised event.
Because in terms of the risks of running this sort of operation, the risks of long-term infiltration for public order purposes and the risks for criminal intelligence activities do in some respects differ, don't they?
Yes, they do.
And this is where you get concerns about disclosure in particular, don't you?
Yes, indeed. That's the whole regime that I've discussed or highlight or sought to highlight the distinction between evidential short-term deployments and the longer-term evidential, non-evidential deployments.
And if I'm understanding you correctly, your apology encompasses not doing more to identify and deal with those risks at the time.
That's correct. Yes, that's a source of personal regret.
Could we go to page 7, please? And if we look at the section at the bottom about HN60, give you a moment to read that.
Thank you.
So you're being informed that they've just deployed an officer into the Socialist Workers' Party who is attending events at which he will be being taught about Trotskyist doctrine. By this stage, 1998, the threat of subversion in this country was extremely low, wasn't it?
There was a change, yes.
And the security service were no longer actively investigating subversion, were they?
Documents I've been reminded of over a period, there was a reduction in the security service attention to more monitoring activity.
Yeah, a watching brief, I think they describe it as.
Correct, thank you, sir.
So there is no standalone justification on the grounds of counter-subversion work to justify an infiltration of the SWP, is there?
I think I would need to know more about what the state of knowledge was at the time.
And in terms of public order, we've seen evidence which suggests there was some concern that there might have been a renaissance in disorder, but very little evidence that the SWP was involved in any serious disorder at this time.
I'm afraid I can't make any useful comment.
When you visited the SDS and learned that the SDS were infiltrating the SWP in 1998, did it ring any alarm bells for you?
No, I mean, I can't recall reading that with the attention that it may have deserved or seemed to have deserved. And I can't recall making any intrusive inquiries in relation to SDS operations.
If you had subjected it to critical scrutiny at the time, it does at least beg questions, doesn't it, about the proportionality of infiltrating a political party such as the SWP with an undercover police officer?
Yes, this is an aspect of what I've tried to convey, that we should have taken more vigorous action in a highly intrusive way.
If we could go to page 9, please, now, at the top of the page, and the pen picture for HN81. I'll give you a moment to read that.
Thank you.
This visit takes place whilst the Stephen Lawrence inquiry's Part 1 hearings were ongoing. You're being told here that the SDS has an officer targeting local campaign groups in Brixton, and that recently he has provided intelligence on the MFJ's efforts to influence the Lawrence family during the public hearing. What was your reaction at the time to learning that?
I'm not aware that I studied that with sufficient detail to form an intelligent conclusion.
Were you aware at the time that there were concerns about the attempts of far-left groups to influence the Lawrences?
No, I don't think so. I was aware that there was concern about public order incidents and activity around the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, but I can't recall any detail.
Would you have understood there to be a desire to know whether or not these left-wing groups were getting any traction with the family?
I think it was rather more to my recollection whether there was traction that these groups were gaining influence in relation to the potential for public disorder.
That sentence at the end, more recently he has provided intelligence on the MFJ's efforts to influence the family during the public hearing. You are being told that, aren't you, because the SDS is trumpeting to you that it has an officer who can do that?
If that was the intention, I understand, but I can't recall that I was clever enough to pick up that particular point during this brief visit.
And that is something that you should have picked up on, isn't it?
With the benefit, yes.
When you said with the benefit, did you mean with the benefit of hindsight?
Correct.
Can I suggest to you that even without the benefit of hindsight, learning that the SDS had an officer infiltrating and a left-wing group and reporting on efforts to influence the Lawrence family during the public hearing was something that should have rung alarm bells?
I think that you're giving an interpretation of those wordings which is more sinister than I read them at the time.
think it follows from the lack of any action at the time that you weren't concerned by them at the time. But what I'm putting to you is, at the time, you should have been concerned by this, shouldn't you?
If I'd have been alert enough to read as cleverly as I should have done the wording within a brief visit document, yes.
Can we look at the pen picture at the bottom? This is DC Jenner. You will see, I'll give you a moment to read the summary.
Thank you very much.
Again, this is as echoes of what I showed you in another document. This is the officer who's got unique access to a range of anti-police campaigns in London. And again, can I take it that none of that rang alarm bells for you at the time?
Regrettably, yes.
Could we have up, please, 728625? Page 12, please. This is a file note made by Detective Inspector Lambert of the SDS. It's about a meeting which took place on the 14th of August 1998, at which D.I. Lambert, Acting Detective Inspector Walton, and HN144 codename Windmill Tilter, the UCO we've just been looking at, who was reporting on matters touching the Lawrence family and the Lawrence inquiry. We know that Detective Superintendent Colin Black knew about this meeting. Did he tell you anything about it?
Not that I can recall, no.
Did anybody at the time of the Lawrence inquiry tell you that an SDS undercover police officer had met somebody from either the Stephen Lawrence review team or the Racial and Violent Crime Task Force?
No, I can be reasonably confident that this did not come to my notice at all at the time.
Could we have up, please, 748392? This is a minute covering a report to which we'll go in a moment. It's from Detective Superintendent Colin Black, then the Ops Commander. It says the note is marked secret and is for the attention of the named addressees only. Any further dissemination should be discussed with the Detective Superintendent C Squad in SO12. If we go over the page, we'll see it's entitled The Stephen Lawrence Campaign, Associated Organisations. It's dated the 10th of September 1998. And if we could have the italics under the title expanded, please. You'll see it was produced for the Commissioner DAC Grieve and Superintendent Thornton. The contents of the report go through systematically various organisations which had involvement in the Stephen Lawrence campaign, starting with the Families Campaign and going through other groups and concluding with trade unions, the press, and another Asian Justice campaign on behalf of Ricky Reel. I appreciate this was not addressed to you, but it's an important document, and I wanted to know if you could assist the inquiry in any way as to how a report about organisations associated with the Stephen Lawrence campaign came to be prepared for the Commissioner DAC Grieve and Superintendent Thornton.
No, I've had the opportunity of seeing this document recently. As I understand it, it did not come to me, and I'm afraid I can't assist you with your inquiry.
If we could take that down now and have 722486 up, please. This is tab B175, sir. If we just go to page 2, I'll show you what the document is. It's a correspondence file with correspondence between CO24 and Metropolitan Police Special Branch in it. Could we go to page 116, please? This is a minute sheet about a report. If we look at the first minute, if we have that expanded, HN58 is a DCI in charge of the SDS at the time. He's writing to DCS Black, and it's about a request by Black of the detective inspector in the SDS, HN53, for a summary of the state of play of left-wing involvement in the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. The attached note has been compiled from a secret and reliable source which must be protected. A similar intelligence report has been sent to C Squad. And you'll see it says in the bottom left, SDS, 22nd of December 98. If we could zoom out and have the first 2 minutes. See, this is a minute by Detective Superintendent Black to Commander Special Branch, which includes the phrase, "You may wish to show this to AXO. Upon return, I shall arrange for Mr. Grieve to be briefed." And then the endorsement top right, scene thanks, AXO 30th the 12th. Can I take it then that the note that this minute sheet covers is one that you would have seen?
I certainly acknowledge that is my writing, and I saw or expressed my view, scene thanks. I don't know whether this was a superficial read by me. Certainly, unlike the document which you've just shown me previously, dated September, I did not see that. I assumed that this was part of a correspondence channel between SB and CO24, and I'm being shown, as it were, by background information.
And from the context of the first minute, you would have known that what you were being shown was a report that had come from the SDS.
I think that's correct.
Could we have the next page, 117, please? This is actually a pretty short document, dated the 22nd of December. Could I ask that the text, including the title, is expanded? I'll give you a moment to read that.
Thank you.
It appears from this document that a significant importance is being attached to the Lawrence's position vis-a-vis a civil rights march, because the suggestion is if the family had called for a civil rights march, up to 100,000 people might have taken to the streets, whereas from the second paragraph it looks as if the movement for justice on their own will be doing well to get 1,000 people out on the streets. So 2 orders of magnitude difference. is it fair to say that this document shows the importance that was being attached to understanding the family's position?
Yes, I can explain. I certainly understand that interpretation.
And the contents of the second paragraph show that the stance of other members of Black and Asian justice campaigns are also being noted, aren't they?
Yes, indeed.
What did you make of this document when you read it?
I can't recall what I made of it.
Can I take it that it wouldn't have been a critical reaction at the time?
Well, on the reading of the minutes, this appears to be a note through me of a correspondence that I'd not seen before, and I am not in a position to take action upon it.
But you're certainly not throwing your hands up in horror at what you've read, are you?
Not that I can recall, and with benefit of hindsight, I should have reacted more vigorously.
Because what this amounts to is you being informed that you are seeing what the product of the SDS's undercover operation is, aren't you? And they're reporting on, inter alia, the Lawrences.
Yes, absolutely.
And you would have known from your then fairly recent visit to the SDS 5 months earlier that the UCO in question would have been HN81.
If I'd have connected those aspects of knowledge, yes.
Was any consideration given at the time to whether the Stephen Lawrence inquiry should be informed that there was an undercover police officer infiltrating the movement for justice and reporting on the Lawrence family?
I'm not aware of any discussion.
There should have been, shouldn't there?
With the benefit of what we know now, yes.
Even without the benefit of what we know now, should it not have been obvious to you as a very senior officer in the Metropolitan Police Service that an undercover police officer reporting on the Lawrence family was something that should be declared?
I think if my knowledge had been in those stark terms, then yes, there should have been action.
But that is what this document substantively conveys to you, doesn't it?
Yes, if I'd have absorbed and had the time to take those deductions.
And the SDS should not have been collecting and disseminating intelligence like this, should it?
Unequivocally, no.
And it should have been stopped at the time.
Yes.
Can you help us with why this sort of intelligence was being collected at the time?
I can't, I'm afraid.
Was it a concern that the consequences of the complaints raised by the Lawrences and the underlying failures of the investigation into Stephen's murder were going to have for the Metropolitan Police Service?
I think the whole impact of the Stephen Lawrence inquiry was bound to have great impact.
And concern about the impact on the Met's ability to police by consent.
Yes.
And public order concerns.
Yes.
In other words, the Stephen Lawrence inquiry was of profound importance to the MPS.
Yes.
And part and parcel of understanding what was going on was understanding the position that the Lawrences were taking.
Yes.
And who was supporting them or trying to support them.
Yes.
And the potential for other Black and Asian justice campaigns to add to the problems already faced by the Metropolitan Police Service in these regards?
I think that's true, yes.
Can we take that down now, please? There were 2 HMIC inspections that we're aware of in the 1990s, which included the SDS. One, the inspection took place just before you assumed the position of AXO, but I think reported in early 94, and the other was in January 1999. We can take the document down now. Can you help us with what your understanding was of what those inspections had involved?
To the best of my recollection, the normal deep inspection process that was applied by Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary. It's a regret that it did not highlight the issues that we now know to be the problems.
What do you mean by a deep inspection process?
They followed their own procedures, which they had established over years, and were a reputable and highly professional investigative body.
Had you ever been on the receiving end of an HMIC inspection?
I think several.
And in broad terms, in what depth did they go into when you were inspected?
I found them to be useful and probative and a prompt for action, because they raised issues that needed addressing.
Did they concentrate on process and paperwork, or did they go further than that?
I think they were useful in being broader.
As you have rightly pointed out, neither of the inspections that took place discovered the issues that we are investigating: sex discrimination, race discrimination, miscarriages of justice, the use of deceased children's identities, poor welfare support, and questionable justification. A whole raft of issues not identified. Perhaps the easiest question I'm going to ask you all day. These reports gave you false assurance, didn't they?
I think that was the effect.
Can you help us from the point of view of learning lessons? What could be done to give inspections like this greater chance of spotting the sorts of things that went wrong with the SDS?
Well, it's not an area that I am personally expert, but I'm certainly aware that the whole inspection process has evolved subsequently since this period and does take a more intrusive and probing approach to its work.
Can we now have 36855 up, please? This is a letter dated the 1st of July 1999, and it's about learning lessons after disorder in the City of London. And the event that's being referred to is the one that was known as J18, an event on the 18th of June 1999, at which there was considerable disorder in the City of London, centred on, but not limited to, the Life Building. I'll give you a moment to look at the first page. When you're ready, let the projectionist know, and he'll take you to the second page.
I'm afraid this is Home Office correspondence. I'm not picking up with accuracy what is being said, I'm afraid.
Okay, if you go back, can you see at the bottom of that first page? The reason I'm showing it to you is because you are named at the bottom. Okay. Once you've absorbed that, I'll give you some of the background. essentially, the Home Office is getting involved. They're asking questions along a theme of things have gone badly wrong. How can we learn lessons? And they're getting the Metropolitan Police and the Security Service to put their heads together. What I'm interested in is this. The curiosity is before the J18 event, the SDS had a UCO in Reclaim the Streets' core organising group, who reported in considerable detail, accurately, on plans for the day, and in fact was involved in the planning and execution of those plans. It appears, however, that intelligence was not acted upon either by the City of London Police or the Metropolitan Police. And what I would like to know is, do you have any recollection in the aftermath of the disorder of what was done about the fact that the SDS had, on this occasion, provided highly pertinent intelligence that had not been utilised?
Forgive my confusion in not providing a probative answer, but I've never seen this, to my knowledge, before, and I have some difficulty in recalling at all what occurred.
You may not be able to help with the next question. Is, can you remember being told before the J18 event that Special Branch had a source and very timely, accurate intelligence?
I'm sorry, I'm confused by the letter, and I'm afraid confused by your question.
Right, well, I'm not going to persevere. I'll move on to another topic. Can we have 748089, please? Can we have page 5? Now we're moving on now to consider an undercover police officer, HN144. And this is you directing her to vacate her home address in July 2000 because there has been a potential compromise of her as an undercover police officer. I'll give you a moment to read that.
Thank you.
Do you have any independent recollection of this now?
Regrettably, I don't. I understand that in a small number of cases over a period of 11 years, I made a number of vacation assistance orders, but I can't recall, I'm afraid.
It may not be necessary for you to have an independent recollection for the purposes of what I want to ask you. We now know that there is a great deal of evidence to suggest that HN144 had, by this time, formed a sexual relationship with an animal rights activist called Thomas Frampton, and that HN144's then husband knew that. And that HN144 and her husband were separating because HN144 was resigning from the Metropolitan Police Service at the end of her undercover deployment in order to make a new life with Frampton. that the result of your direction to vacate their home address had the practical effect of funding HN26's husband's move into smaller premises, which he then occupied alone. My question to you is, if you had known that when these papers were put in front of you, what difference would it have made?
If I'd have had full knowledge, including the material that you've just referred to, I think I would have pondered long and hard about the relocation decision.
Would there still have been a concern to ensure her safety if there was any risk from other activists?
I assume yes.
But would there have been a reticence to fund a separation?
Yes.
And might a solution have been to fund temporary rental accommodation whilst events were sorted out?
As you say, if we had known facts which we didn't know at the time, it would undoubtedly have impacted on the decision made.
And might, knowing those facts, or at least evidence strongly suggesting them, there have been a disciplinary investigation?
It's a possibility, yes.
When you say a possibility, what would the considerations have been?
Whether they amounted to defects which were dealt with by the disciplinary code.
Would a consideration have been that disciplining an undercover police officer who was retiring from the Metropolitan Police Service and literally in bed with an activist have prompted any reticence to discipline her for fear of prompting indiscreet disclosures?
I really can't give an accurate opinion at this stage.
Can we take that down now, please? Can we go to MPS-305746, tab B235, sir? These are arrangements for a visit to the SDS on Thursday, the 26th of April, 2001. The significance of the date is this appears from the documents that we have found to be your first visit after REPA. Were you given any training on REPA before it came into force?
I had been involved both as DAC crime in relation to evidential deployments with very considerable closeness with the evolution of the whole REPA process. I think the date you're showing me here is April of 2001. I think the codes of practice followed, to my recollection, some while later, but we were involved, I certainly was involved, with the judges who were involved, the surveillance commissioners, with evolving and being engaged both in the various pre-run activities of REPA and as it evolved in implementation.
You are quite right that the coming into force of REPA and the development of the codes of practice was actually a protracted process. REPA has been enacted, and am I understanding then that by the time you visited the SDS in April 2001, you would have had at least a working understanding of what was going on?
I knew, certainly. I think I'm correct in pointing out that the codes of practice had not yet been implemented in day-to-day working.
And so you would have been aware in general terms of the need for proportionality and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a whole range of issues. As I say, REPA was a true step change, notably if you're engaged in it day to day with the involvement of high-level legal expertise and the surveillance commissioners. That changed the ballgame, and it was necessary to alter. We didn't do as much as we should have done in relation to STS.
So if we now look at these visit arrangements, we see that the gist says something of who you are going to meet. It included HN60, HN3, HN77, HN81, and Carlo Saraki. It says at the bottom that prior to the meeting you would be briefed on the areas of work. If we go to page 2, please. And under the extreme left wing, at the top, to provide intelligence on the activities of the extreme left wing, to report on public order events, to provide intelligence on community-based groups who pose a threat to public order. I'll let you read the blurb underneath, under the heading deployment.
Yes, indeed.
Did this ring any alarm bells in the light of what you then knew about RIPA?
It should have done, yes. I don't think I was reading these words in the course of a short visit and reading the preparatory briefing note, which picked up that issue in my mind, which it should have done.
It does talk at the end of that first paragraph about aims of injury and disorder, but there is no real indication of gravity, is there?
No.
And this inquiry has heard evidence that there may have been some, to the effect there may have been some exaggeration of the level of threat. And presumably, if it had been pitched even lower than it is here, that would be more of a reason to be concerned.
Yes, as you highlight, the deeper issue here is that there was an opportunity available to us to implement REPA with far greater rigorous application to STS. We should have done that.
And if we could go to page 3, please. It may be in the light of your helpful answer just now that we can take this quite shortly, but if you see the section on animal rights, the same point applies, doesn't it? There should have been more rigorous application of REPA. That's
correct. You mentioned the role of HMI in relation to its product. I hesitate to make the observation, but the surveillance commissioners conducted activities in relation to RIPA implementation and sadly did not uncover what we now know to be the sad truth.
So would that be an appropriate time to take the morning break?
Certainly. We break now for 15 minutes to give you a break and also the transcribers.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Could we have up again, please, MPS-305746? Just to remind you as context for the next theme I need to explore, we're going back to the briefing for your visit in April 2001. If we could have page 2 and the paragraph at the bottom. This is a reference to HN81's deployment.
Thank you.
If we take that down and now go to UCPI 36915, please. This is a witness statement made by HN81 to Operation Hearn in 2015. If we could go to the second page, please. You can just make out on the right-hand side of the page the photocopy of the holes made by the hole punch. If we could go to the text immediately below the top hole punch, please. Now, what I'm directing to you to, Sir David, is the evidence that HN81 gave to Operation Hearn about your visits. It says, more importantly, however, I attended 2 meetings with AXO David Veness during my tour. Again, these took place at a safe house and were of a meet and greet nature, but nevertheless, he asked questions about the operations we were engaged in, and there was no suggestion of anything being kept from him. I met him once near the beginning of my tour, whilst I believe I was still in the back office, and once more near the end. My memory of the second meeting was of him having a general chat with everyone, and then him seeing us in groups of 2 officers asking about our operations. I was left with a sense of appreciation for the work I was doing. Do you have any reason to doubt the accuracy of that recollection?
No, the officer appears to have a more detailed recall of our conversations as he recalls them than I do.
And we've seen how his deployment was summarized in the briefing for this visit. We've seen how you saw a short report from the SDS in December 1998 based on his intelligence. We know that his intelligence was incorporated in other reports, including those that I've shown you today that you did not see. He goes on, essentially, to make the point he wasn't a rogue officer. And that's a fair point, isn't it? He wasn't a rogue officer. He was doing what was expected of him in his role, wasn't he?
It was an assigned role which he was performing. And he says, I'm grateful that he noticed that he felt appreciation from the visit, because, as you mentioned, this was a meet and greet visit.
Yeah. And at the time, his work was being received very positively, wasn't it?
I'm not able to go into that detail, but it would appear that his work was generally appreciated, yes.
Yeah. And can I take your answers as agreement to the proposition that he was not a rogue officer?
No.
No, he wasn't.
He was not a rogue officer.
Thank you. Can we go next to 728625, please? Page 3, tab B242, sir. This is a recommendation for commendation for HN81 dated the 2nd of October 2001. Do you know whether you saw this or not?
I don't know at what grade the commendation is made. If it was a AXO commendation, then almost certainly I would have seen it. If it was for a commendation not at AXO level, then I might not have seen it. In fact, I probably didn't see it.
Can we go then to the second bullet point, for which I think it doesn't matter whether or not you saw it? It refers there to, well, it says a copy of the Home Secretary's appreciation of the quality of the public order operation mounted in June 1998, communicated to AXO, rests on DC HN144's file. Now, we have not found any such letter of appreciation on DC 81's file. And my question to you is, can you remember whether the Home Secretary expressed appreciation of the quality of the public order operation mounted in June 1998?
I'm afraid I can't.
Could we go now, please, to 741735? This is tab B223, sir. We're moving now to the BBC television programme True Spies. And this is a letter from the BBC to you, dated the 9th of January 2001, during the preparatory phase for that television programme. The first paragraph says, "It was good of you to find the time to see us when Peter Taylor and I paid a brief visit to the Commissioner before Christmas." Our understanding is by this stage Sir John Stevens is the Commissioner. Can you help us with Sir John Stevens's role in liaison with the BBC in relation to preparation of the True Spies programme?
I'm afraid in relation to True Spies, my recollection is as poor as it can be. Absolutely, there were senior involvement with the True Spies, with Peter Taylor and his colleagues. I also thought that it included ACPO, the Terrorism and Allied Matters National Council, which had its own chairman. I think there were various bodies engaged. I regret that I cannot unravel who did precisely what. I was engaged, but I can't recall what it was that I was engaged with.
Yeah. It appears from this document that you'd had a meeting with the Commissioner, Mr. Taylor, and one of his colleagues, and as the letter goes on, you'd offered help contacting former colleagues. I may be pressing too far, given the state of your memory, but can you recall whether this was a first meeting or whether there had been earlier meetings?
I can't recall that precisely. It does look to be at an early stage of the discussion.
And then if we go to the bottom paragraph on this page, please. After a list of essentially people they already know about, there is a request by the BBC for you to help them contact others. We know that subsequently a letter was sent out by Commander Pearce seeking volunteers to assist with the programme. Can you recall whether that was the result of you asking him to do so or not?
Sadly, I can't.
Is it likely that it arose from you asking him to do so?
Certainly a possibility.
Could we have 741801, please? That's B294, sir. We're moving ahead from January to April 2000. This is April 2003. So a couple of years later, looking back, this is from Commander Pearce. If we look at the second paragraph, here, a couple of years later, looking back, Commander Pearce is saying that there was a meeting in New Scotland Yard on the 15th of January. In other words, after the letter we've just looked at. Can you recall whether you were involved in further meetings or whether this is a mistaken date referring to the meeting that we've just read about?
As I say, I can't unravel with precision as to who was involved and which dates. I mean, I've no reason to query if somebody said that it occurred, that it took place.
If we can have 741738 now, please. This is tab B236, sir. This is the letter from Commander Pearce. We're back now in 2001, the 30th of April 2001, to colleagues, inviting them to contact the BBC team if they wish. I know I've asked you and you can't remember whether you directly asked Commander Pearce to write such a letter, but can I take it that given what we've seen about your involvement, that this would have been done with your either express or implied permission?
That's a fair assumption.
We can take it, can we, from the fact that at this stage, the Metropolitan Police Service is positively inviting people to cooperate with the BBC, that you are unconcerned about making public the concept of infiltrating left-wing groups.
I think that's generally correct.
And was that because at the time it was considered wholly justified?
I presume so.
Well, the alternative would be that cooperating with the BBC was the lesser of two evils, and better than not cooperating with them. Can you help us? Was it because it was thought this was good PR for the Met, or was it because your backs were up against the wall?
I suspect, I mean, Peter Taylor had been involved with several initiatives in relation to kindred subject matters. I assumed it was continuation of public information which was perhaps worthy in the public domain, not as a reputation issue, but as a story of public interest.
A good news story.
Yes, but that was not perhaps the reason. It was because it was an interesting story.
Did you give consideration to the risk that might arise to former undercover police officers and current undercover police officers as a result of the BBC making public this story?
As we now know, we should have paid attention to potentially negative aspects in a variety of forms and the impact of the True Spies inquiry, which clearly we didn't do at the time.
Or put another way, it should have been risk assessed and it wasn't.
Well, I don't know whether there was or not, but no, the effect was not necessarily anticipated.
There were risk assessments afterwards, but we've not seen any prospective risk assessments. Can we have up now 741774, please? That's tab B275. Now we move on to the fallout. This is a letter from the Director General of the Security Service to Mr. Hedges in his capacity of Chairman of ACPO TAM. I'll give you a moment to look at it, but the gist is she was not happy at all that the security service had not been consulted.
Yes, that's a significant issue.
And that's a fair criticism, isn't it?
Yes.
And perhaps to cut to the chase, on reflection, cooperating with the makers of True Spies was a mistake, wasn't it?
I think that's probably too broad a statement. It clearly was inappropriate that the security service were able to feel that they'd not been consulted.
Well, I may come back to that question a little bit later then. Can we take that down now, please? I want to move to the question of Detective Sergeant Thompson. Detective Sergeant Thompson was caught having committed many acts of misconduct. He disobeyed an order not to travel to Indonesia. He'd obtained an additional passport in his cover identity. He'd obtained additional cover driving licenses in order to avoid the potential consequences of road traffic charges in his cover name. He was developing a second unauthorized cover identity in the name of a deceased child, including registering that identity as an elector. There were at least strong suspicions that he had become involved sexually with one or more women in his undercover identity, suspicions which were well founded. There were also suspicions about the propriety of his financial affairs undercover. In other words, suspicions and evidence to back them up, suggesting serious professional misconduct and reasonably to suspect the commission of multiple criminal offences. That was brought to the attention of Chief Superintendent Colin Black, and he dealt with the matter informally by downgrading Thompson's security clearance to security cleared level for 2 years. That was a step taken after the end of DS Thompson's deployment. Chief Superintendent Black's evidence to this inquiry is that you asked him to deal with Detective Sergeant Thompson. Is that true?
I've seen documents, particularly when I was asked to prepare my statement in 2025 in relation to the officer. I cannot recall any of those, and I cannot recall giving any instructions in relation to at any stage of the investigations.
Did Chief Superintendent Black, in the role and the rank he held, have authority to deal with Detective Sergeant Thompson in that way?
I think the actual determination of the case may well have rested appropriately at a Chief Superintendent or Acting Commander level.
So just to explore that, was it properly within the gift of a Chief Superintendent to decide not to refer these episodes of serious misconduct to the Department for Professional Standards or take any step that might result in prosecution?
I cannot be precise with at what level it was appropriate to make this determination. I think all of us would now reflect that there were other options apart from the decisions that were made.
Were you told of the decision?
I was not, to my knowledge.
Should the matter have been referred further up the chain of command before deciding not formally to discipline?
That certainly would have been an option.
When you say an option, was it a requirement?
That I'm not precise as to what level in terms of rank, the decision-making could have been made. It sounds reasonable to me that it could have been made at a decision at Chief Superintendent.
Were there any guidelines for managers at Mr. Black's level as to what they had authority to do and what they needed to communicate further up the chain of command?
I presume that may well have been the case. I apologise at this remove. I can't recall the precise details.
Shouldn't Thompson have been referred to the Department for Professional Standards?
That certainly would have been an option available.
In what circumstances can an officer decide not to discipline someone when there is evidence of very serious misconduct?
Well, there is a myriad of possibilities for them to consider assume that Colin Black had access to information on which he based his decision.
You're painting a picture of a senior manager at his level having a broad discretion.
I think that was my impression.
Would protecting the operational security of the SDS be a good ground for not disciplining an errant officer?
A minor consideration.
Because the Department for Professional Standards is capable of disciplining someone without undermining the SDS, isn't it?
I think that is true, yes.
And similarly, the court system is capable of prosecuting someone without harming the public interest.
That's true.
Would you agree with hindsight with the proposition that this should have been dealt with formally, not informally?
With hindsight, that would have been, I think, the preferred option.
And at the time, if it had come in front of you, and on those facts as I've described them to you, but with the additional fact that the officer had, as well as being thoroughly dishonest and behaving very badly indeed, did have some mental health problems, would you have decided it in the same way or differently?
I can't be precise, but I hope that I would have taken a course of action that was more broadly in the public interest.
Are you very diplomatically saying you would have taken a different decision?
I hope so.
As indeed we saw earlier happened when very senior managers got hold of the Chitty case and insisted that Chitty was disciplined.
Yes.
Can we go now, please, to 749763? So this is your tab B271. Page 2, please. This is a letter addressed to you, dated the 8th of August 2002, written by the partner of an anonymous undercover police officer, HN144. If you don't know who that is, you may wish to consult the cipher list.
I think I know.
I'll give you a moment to refresh your memory from the bottom of the page and running over onto the top of the next.
Thank you.
We've got the benefit of your second witness statement about this. I need to ask you directly. Did you see this letter?
Not to my recollection.
Assuming that you didn't see it, am I right to understand from your second witness statement that your staff would have given you a précis of its contents?
Possibly yes, but whether it included this specific detail, I've no knowledge.
And this document was generated in the course of a sickness appeals process?
That is correct. I just would like to add that this was investigated very thoroughly in recent years, and I provided a series of statements which I appended to my second statement, witness statement, which I hope tries to shed some light on what the possibilities were about whether I never saw this letter.
Can you recall whether your staff included mention of the misconduct alleged in this letter when briefing you?
No.
Should they have done so?
I think there was a variety of responsibilities upon them. I make no complaint in retrospect that it was not fully comprehensive. I don't know, I can't recall any details of the briefing note.
Well, can I just explore that a bit? These are pretty arresting allegations, aren't they?
They are, particularly as we now view them today.
Well, they would have been at any time, wouldn't they?
There was certainly a cause for concern.
Being raised in correspondence with you in the capacity of a very senior member of the Metropolitan Police Service.
That's correct.
Surely any responsible member of your staff should either have put these allegations in front of you or told you about them.
That would have been the ideal outcome. I've no knowledge to contribute as to why that did not occur, and I attribute no blame.
To say that it would be an ideal standard to raise allegations of serious sexual misconduct is understating it, isn't it? I understand the reticence of talking about people under your command, but the reality was these allegations should not simply have been ignored, should they?
Certainly, ideally, no.
Well, it's not ideally at all. The bottom line is if a police officer has allegations like this drawn to their boss's attention, they should pass them on, shouldn't they?
I think that is an interpretation. This was a process relating to sick pay payment in relation to the officer. I certainly should have, regardless of the questions you're specifically asking of this incident, I should have been more alerted to the broader welfare concerns which were being evidenced in relation to undercover officers, and I regret that.
I'm not asking you to name them. Do you know who was on your staff at the time?
No, I don't.
Are you sure?
I certainly can't recall.
If you had read this document or had it precede to you in the material passages, what would you have done?
I hope I would have taken further action.
That, of course, is the right answer. What I would just like to be clear about is, are you sure that in those days, at that time, that is in fact what you would have done?
I hope so. I don't know, with the benefit of looking backwards, what action I would have taken. I hope I would have done the right thing.
From that answer, I am taking it that you are not categoric, and there is a possibility that these matters could have been drawn to your attention and you did nothing about them. Is that fair?
I don't think that I saw the document. I have looked into that in some detail, and I provided decent recent statements which I hope address this issue. Had I seen the letter, I hope I would have taken the proper action.
Putting aside the question of exactly who saw this letter and what was said about its contents within your office, on any view an undercover police officer's partner raises serious allegations of sexual misconduct that go into your office and nothing is done about them? Is it?
The historical fact is yes, you're right.
Doesn't that speak volumes about attitudes to women in the MPS at the time?
I agree, it's an unwelcome indication. Whether that was true in this particular case, I've no way of commenting.
Because if the harm done by this sort of sexual deception had been appreciated, something would have been done by somebody, wouldn't it?
I think that's true of a raft of issues relating to misconduct within the SDS.
And I could make similar observations about attitudes to the children born of these relationships. We have to pick it up for the transcript. I think you said yes then. I just want to be clear.
Sorry, I apologise for not being clear. I said yes.
Did HN123's partner ever say anything to you at any time about undercover police officers having girlfriends in their undercover identities?
Not that I can recall.
Might he have done, or she?
I don't know.
Or fathering a child or children with women that they had met in their undercover identities?
Similarly, I have no recollection.
Or any other sexual misconduct?
No. As I say, I'm, in my own mind, clear that I did not see this letter or receive indications by other means.
Yes, I'm pitching my question wider because we know that you met HN123's partner in the course of the appeals process. And I'm asking you now, did HN123's partner say anything to you about any of these matters?
Not that I can recall. It was entirely appropriate that there should have been meetings between the officer and his partner, and indeed other representatives, for example, of a staff association, in order to progress the main issue of which we were meeting, which was continuation of pay.
Did you tell HN123's partner that the SDS had been through a cowboy phase?
No recollection.
Or anything remotely like that?
I don't think I would have used those phrases.
You will see that phrase, the assertion in the letter is that you did do that. I want to give you an opportunity to deal with this proposition. Why would HN123's partner assert in a letter to you that you had said something that you had not?
I don't know.
Could we take it from the fact that it is included in this 2002 document that it is more likely than not that you did say something to that effect?
I've no information or recollection that would contribute to a helpful answer to that.
Did you say to HN123's partner that you were keeping a close eye on the SDS?
I've no recollection.
Were you keeping a close eye on the SDS at that time?
We now know that I wasn't keeping as close an eye on the SDS as I should have done at the time.
Did you say to HN123's partner that the SDS was now part of the modern world?
No.
Did you consider at the time that the SDS was part of the modern world?
With what we know now, there were clearly defects that it was living in the past.
At the time, what was your state of mind?
I can't recall whether I had a particular view.
Did you say anything to HN123's partner to the effect that the SDS had better leadership than it had had?
Not that I'm aware, no.
Did you consider that it did?
I can't recall.
Whether from HN144's partner or anybody else, did you ever hear anything to the effect that SDS officers were misconducting themselves sexually in their undercover identities?
Of that I can be certain. I did not know, and I was not told of such illegitimate activities.
How, when your recollection is generally so poor, can you be so sure of that?
Because it would have prompted alarm bells, and I hope would have led to resultant actions.
Did anybody tell you that SDS undercover officers were in any way engaging in sexual activity in their undercover identities?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Is there likely to have been a reply to this letter?
I can't assist. It was part of a process where there was a meeting held. I made a decision about pay, presumably that they would have notified them what the decision and the outcome was.
Would it be fair to say that on any view, HN144's partner was clearly very distressed?
Yes, and I've expressed my opinion that I think the missed opportunity in not seeing this letter was not addressing in more detail and in more probative way the whole issue of welfare of undercover officers and indeed their partners.
Can we take the document down now, please? And could we also have the feed down? Could you let me know when I can continue, please?